Governors' anxiety over Senate bill's coverage losses. The Trump administration tried to reassure governors Saturday that funding in the Senate's Obamacare repeal bill and administrative flexibility would prevent people from losing coverage if the legislation becomes law. Governors of both parties were briefed on the Senate bill, which would dismantle major parts of Obamacare and cap federal Medicaid payments to states, during a closed-door session with HHS Secretary Tom Price and CMS Administrator Seema Verma. A handful of GOP governors after the roughly two-hour meeting said they were reassured by the administration's description of flexibility HHS and CMS has at its disposal. But other Republicans and Democrats did not appear to be swayed and were no closer to supporting the Senate legislation. "We as governors are the closest representatives to the people," said Nevada Governor Brian Sandoval, a Republican who has been the target of a full-court press from the White House to support the Senate bill, in hopes that it will bring along uncommitted Republican Senator Dean Heller. "I am struggling to validate the numbers that are being presented to me by the administration versus what I'm hearing from independent experts, what I'll likely hear from the CBO, what I'm hearing from back home," said Sandoval, who chuckled when asked whether any minds had changed, saying likely not. The Senate bill unwinds enhanced federal funding for Obamacare's Medicaid expansion and sets spending caps for overall Medicaid funding and strict limits on their growth, something that has alarmed many GOP and Democratic governors. "From my perspective, I'm no more comfortable about what this next bill is," said Montana Democratic Governor Steve Bullock. "Flexibility without funding is a meaningless thing." Administration officials on Saturday also disputed initial estimates from the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office that 22 million people would lose coverage under the Senate bill by 2026, including roughly 15 million from Medicaid, according to individuals in the room. CBO early next week is expected to release an updated estimate on the latest version of the Senate bill, which bolstered private insurance subsidies for low-income people and added billions of dollars for opiate addiction treatment, among other changes. Verma discussed how the Senate bill's tax credits for private insurance and billions of dollars in funding to stabilize insurance markets would reduce coverage losses, in addition to a variety of waivers that CMS can grant to states. The State Stability Fund in the bill now has $182 billion. The administration is arguing that everyone will still have coverage, just through the private insurance market, Sandoval said. "I think one of the takeaways is that the way this problem is going to get solved is the governors innovating at the state level," said North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, a Republican. "Anytime that you move towards more state flexibility in a market that's this dynamic, then that's a step in the right direction." Verma has made similar arguments about flexibility and the extra funding in the Senate bill to moderate Republican senators who are still on the fence about repeal, including Heller, West Virginia Shelley Moore Capito and Rob Portman of Ohio. But governors were presented stark figures from independent experts showing how the Better Care Reconciliation Act would slash their federal Medicaid funds. States would see reductions ranging from 27% to 39% by 2036, according to estimates developed by consulting firm Avalere Health and obtained by Politico. In total, the Senate bill would reduce federal Medicaid spending by $772 billion over a decade. "I do acknowledge there's additional flexibilities to the states. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the flexibility to cut people," said Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards, a Democrat. "You're either going to have fewer people covered, or the coverage you offer will be much less than is currently offered. I'm not interested in that." 15 states would see their federal Medicaid funding decline by more than 35% by 2036, according to the Avalere projections. They include California, Nevada, Kentucky, Washington, North Dakota, Oregon and New Mexico. States that would see reductions between 30 and 35% include Colorado, Arizona, Utah, Ohio, Arkansas, Pennsylvania and Tennessee. One of the emphasis though is the flexibility grants to the states that really are not being factored in sufficiently. That was one of the main points of discussion, said Arkansas Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson. But he still said he wanted to see the Senate bill improved so that the Medicaid funding reductions to states were not as large. The Avalier presentation estimated that Arkansas would see a 32% reduction in federal Medicaid funds by 2036. Trump becomes the star of the show at Bedminster. President Donald Trump spent much of Saturday in a glass-enclosed viewing stand alongside the 15th hole at Trump National Golf Club, giving both the press and the public a rare minute-by-minute view of his afternoon. Surrounded by aides, family and friends inside the protected fish tank of the viewing area, Trump watched the U.S. Women's Open golf tournament on a television screen in the booth with dozens of onlookers watching his every move. Though he could have watched at least some of the tournament live from the viewing stand, at least 2 holes were nearby, he opted to instead face the TV and chat with his guests, while eating what looked to be French fries. Toward the end of the day, the president appeared to briefly watch the tournament through the glass enclosure. The president seemed to delight in the adoration of the crowd, repeatedly approaching the glass to wave to gawkers outside. Guests at the club appeared to be astonished that they were so close to the president, exclaiming "I love you" and "I voted for you." One woman was so excited to see the president that she cried. The president arrived at the golf club Friday afternoon after returning from his whirlwind Bastille Day trip to Paris. It's his 4th trip to Bedminster since taking office. Trump was joined for much of the day by his son Eric Trump, his eldest son, Donald Trump, Jr., and son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who are both under fire for meeting last year with a Russian lawyer who offered dirt on Hillary Clinton before the election, were not seen by reporters. Trump showed no signs that the escalating Russia investigations were weighing on him. He smiled and joked with his guests and greeted several players, at one point giving Norwegian golfer Susan Pettersen a "Make America Great Again" hat. Trump has promoted the golf tournament at least 4 times on Twitter in recent days, using his platform as president to draw attention to the event. The Trump Organization owns the golf club, and the president stands to benefit financially from the tournament. Just got to the U.S. Women's Open in Bedminster, New Jersey. People are really happy with record high stock market, up over 17% since election. Trump tweeted Saturday afternoon. A White House spokeswoman did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Administration officials say Trump relishes his time away from the White House, which can be isolating for any president. The commotion from Trump's visit diverted some guests' attention from the tournament. Most people standing next to the 15th hole were facing the president's box instead of the course. Some volunteers and avid golf fans shushed the crowd as people cheered for Trump. "Quiet. Jesus, we're on a golf course," one person said. Other guests expressed outrage at the president's presence, arguing it is inappropriate to host a women's golf tournament in light of Trump's past comments about women. One woman, who declined to give her name, murmured under her breath that she wanted to give the president the middle finger. The United States Golf Association released a statement Friday morning welcoming the president to the championship and touting his presence as a positive for the tournament. It is the first time a sitting president has attended the U.S. Women's Open and is only the 3rd occurrence in our entire championship history, they said, according to the statement. "Our focus remains on conducting the championship and ensuring a great experience for the players and fans this week." Some competitors similarly described Trump's decision to appear at the U.S. Open as beneficial to the event. Regardless of your political affiliation and whether you are a fan of Trump or you're not a fan of Trump, having a president at a women's golf event is pretty remarkable, golfer Marina Alex said in an interview on Friday. "It's going to draw attention to women's golf that has maybe never been in our favor before." Trump campaign and fundraising committees raised $13.9 million in second quarter. Donald Trump's campaign operation raised nearly $14 million between the start of April and the end of June of this year, drawing in significant funds from several donors without histories of giving large amounts to federal campaigns, according to Federal Election Commission records. The $13.9 million total was brought in by the Trump campaign and two joint fundraising committees set up to help raise money for Trump and the Republican National Committee. Trump's campaign reported spending $4.37 million during the quarter. At least $221,363 was at Trump businesses, including rent paid to Trump Tower and lodging at the Trump International Hotel. About half of the campaign's spending during the 3-month period, $2 million, was on digital services. In addition to Trump's campaign, the two joint fundraising committees, called Trump Victory and the Trump Make America Great Again Committee, collect money that's distributed to Trump's campaign, the RNC, and an array of state Republican parties. Individuals are allowed to give close to $450,000 to the joint fundraising committees, which distribute money across multiple committees and funding streams. The three committees combined finished the second quarter with $22.55 million on hand. The source of the funds raised by Trump's joint fundraising arms shifted dramatically in recent months. While only $1.51 million of the committee's revenue came from donations of $200 or more between January and April 2017, about $7.48 million of the money raised this quarter was in the form of larger donations. The biggest donations given to Trump Victory and Trump Make America Great Again came from donors with limited histories of giving to Trump. The top donors, Lianbo Wang and Sherry Lee of Oyster Bay, New York, gave a combined $600,000 to Trump Victory. Lee and Wang are spearheading a New York real estate project called China City of America that has for years worked to build housing in the Catskill Mountains that would allow Chinese investors to gain U.S. visas through the controversial EB-5 visa program. Additionally, a California-based couple listed as Ben and Lily Tang donated $300,000, and a donor named Dan Adams in South Carolina donated $100,000. Though Lee and Adams donated to Trump-related causes during the 2016 election, none of these donors had given more than $50,000 to a Trump cause, according to FEC records. The joint fundraising committees transferred $980,000 to the RNC. More than a dozen state parties also received transfers from Trump's committees, including the Republican parties of Minnesota, Missouri, and West Virginia.